As of the 31st of December 2019, BlackBerry's App Store has permanently shut down. This, paired with the discontinuation of BBM back in May of 2019, basically means that BlackBerry is dead. Any non-Android BlackBerry device has now been stripped away of its smart features, the things that made these devices great. In today's video, I want to look back at the history of BlackBerry and research in motion, what made these devices so popular, and where BlackBerry went wrong. Research in Motion was founded in March of 1984 by two engineering students. They were driven by the desire of commercializing budgie, which was a way of wirelessly transmitting a message onto a television set. However, only around less than 50 of the 100 produced were sold. Despite this, the pair had generated enough credibility to allow Research in Motion to take on side projects, such as a toothbrush that can detect how hard you're brushing, a LAN network for IBM, and a film editing rig for the National Film Board of Canada. However, what really helped to shape RIM's future was Mobitex, which was one of the earliest wireless data networks ever created. After hearing about Research in Motion, the Canadian carrier Rogers contracted the company to see what they could do with Mobitex. RIM then developed their knowledge of wireless and radios and hired Jim Balissell to help in the business side of things. With his newfound understanding for wireless, Research in Motion began to develop hardware, starting with a laptop modem card in 1995. A year later, RIM released their first messaging device, which was the RIM 900 interactive pager. For those of you unaware, a pager was very similar to text messaging, but before text messaging was a thing. Some pagers could only receive messages. However, the RIM 900 was a two-way device, which could send messages back, as well as do read receipts, send faxes, text-to-speech messages to a telephone, and was email capable with very basic HTML access. Following the success of the RIM 900, and later the 950 and 957, RIM introduced the BlackBerry 5810 in 2002. It was a PDA, a pager, and a cell phone, kind of. You actually need to plug in a headset to make calls. The 6710 improved on this by adding a speaker, and the 7200 and the 7700 series introduced color screens. The Pearl and Curve series of smartphones introduced in 2006 and 2007 respectively brought in features that the general customer wanted, such as a camera and dedicated media playback. However, in 2007, a new smartphone launched that changed the world.
An iPod, a phone, and an internet communicator. An iPod, a phone. Are you getting it? These are not three separate devices. This is one device. And we are calling it iPhone.
The iPhone brought in a threat to every cell phone manufacturer. The iPhone, as we know, ended up being a huge deal, in one part thanks to its touchscreen. RIM downplayed the threat of Apple, arguing that consumers need physical keyboards. BlackBerry did release their own touchscreen device, the BlackBerry Storm, however has been noted as being the biggest disaster in smartphone history, due to the amount of defective units, lack of Wi-Fi, software glitches, web browser that wasn't up to par to iPhones, among many things. Speaking of the iPhone, with the 3GS, Apple has outsold BlackBerry for the first time. RIM knew that BlackBerry needed more than just a touch-up, so they began to work on an overhaul. They hired QNX software systems to build a Unix-like operating system to be used in the next device, the BlackBerry Playbook. The device was unveiled in October 2010 and was released in April 2011. I should remember reading about these tablets as a kid and thinking, who wants this crap? The answer was apparently not a lot of people, as only 2.4 million units were sold in a lifetime. The original iPad, for comparison, sold 3.27 million units in its first quarter. The Playbook didn't even offer any email services or BBM at launch. Afterwards, progress at BlackBerry just kind of didn't happen. While iPhones and Android phones kept improving with more and more features, BlackBerry phones fundamentally stayed the same for many years. Despite sales of BlackBerry slowing down, there was one group of people that continued to buy them: teenagers. When I was in year 7 and year 8, BlackBerries were hugely popular, all thanks to BBM. If there are two things that teens love, it's technology and being social, and it's not like this is new knowledge either. The Cybeco, Tag Electronics Chat Now, SpyGear iLink Communicator, etc. Even decades ago, companies tried to appeal to teens with text messaging devices, so it makes perfect sense that BBM took off in this environment. Remember, at this time, instant messaging services like Facebook Messenger were still seen as a texting on my laptop, BRB, I'm AFK type of service, and WhatsApp was still a paid-for service. Everyone wanted a BlackBerry so they could message their friends, very much like how people buy iPhones for iMessage nowadays. Naturally, even this audience moved on from using BlackBerries because they were falling behind Android and iOS. The fact that BBM was only on BlackBerry phones ended up being a curse for RIM because by the time people got the new Android and iOS devices, they switched to using WhatsApp, Messenger, and iMessage. BBM did actually come out on iOS and Android in September 2013, but by this point it was too late. Most people had already migrated to other messaging platforms and would be reluctant to go back to BBM, especially considering it didn't do much different to the other messaging services available. In 2012, Balistel and Lazardis left and were replaced by Thornton Hines. Thousands of jobs were cut, many executives left. The long-awaited BlackBerry 10 OS was delayed into 2013, and BlackBerry were losing relevancy minute by minute. By January 2013, the first BlackBerry 10 OS device, the Z10, was released. While BlackBerry OS was a decent operating system, it came far too late into the smartphone wars. Android and iOS already had a stranglehold on the smartphone OS market, so BlackBerry's hopes were killed before they even began. Apps are the biggest aspect of what makes a smartphone, and nobody wanted to make apps for BlackBerry. This was the same problem that killed Windows Phone. Just like Microsoft allowing users to sideload Android apps onto Windows phones, BlackBerry is also allowed for this. However, it took until the release of the Z3 in February 2014 to allow users to install Android APK files directly without needing to have technical knowledge. The general theme of BlackBerry's management was too little too late. Between disregarding how big the iPhone would get, not releasing innovative devices between 2010 and 2012, not releasing BBM on other platforms sooner, and spending precious time and money developing their own operating system instead of just using Android, are a few examples of the way they've killed their own company. For this review, I went ahead and purchased a BlackBerry device as it's something that I've never owned. The specific phone that I've gotten was the Curve 9320. I could have gotten a bold 9790, but a Curve is what teenagers would have been more likely to use as it was cheaper. Seeing as the store was about to shut down, the first thing I did is download some apps to see what still works. Facebook Messenger would not let me log in due to an old API version, while the main Facebook app got an update, which froze my phone for a solid 15 minutes and threw up a Java error. Anyway, the update removed the app and replaced it with a URL to the mobile site, which still works perfectly. Twitter is unable to connect to their servers. WhatsApp has stopped being supported for many years now. I can't even connect to my Gmail. So, does anything work? Well, yes. Firstly, TuneIn somehow still works, and both the main web browser and Opera Mini are still very capable. My stress test for a crappy browser is a radio site I use. If your browser's crap, it won't play the radio stream, but somehow the BlackBerry browser worked. I was even able to multitask whilst keeping the music in the background. Good stuff. YouTube also works, albeit in 144p. Telegram Web doesn't let me get past the enter your mobile phone number stage, so I wasn't able to try that. I also downloaded some games onto this device. Most of what I could find were rip-offs of real games created by Spice Labs, and they are terrible. Why would anyone pick Subway Skates over Subway Surfers, or Flapbird over Flappy Bird? These games are the most basic kind of garbage, things you'd see on Vinny's Android trash streams. The most impressive game that I found was Gameloft's Asphalt 6. Graphically, it stands somewhere between a Sega Mega Drive and a Sega Mega Drive. It's sad that this phone came out in 2012 and its graphics capabilities are that of a 2005 dumb phone. And that's where my main problem lies with these BlackBerry devices. They don't feel like smartphones, they feel like dumb phones with smart features slapped onto them. iPhones had a desktop-grade web browsing ever since the first iPhone, and yet the BlackBerry relies on stripped-down mobile sites to work. Much like the graphics, the camera again belongs in 2005 as it's substandard to say the least. You can't even record video onto internal storage. In fact, there is only 512 megabytes of internal storage on this device, although the Bold series did tend to have around 8 gigabytes on board. Apps for this phone are in the kilobytes, with the biggest ones being around 2 megabytes in size. Honestly, if not for the social media capabilities, this phone would be on par with like a cheap 2007 Nokia in terms of its feature set. And you might be thinking I'm being harsh on the BlackBerry, but this phone came out at the same time as the Galaxy S3, and these two phones are worlds apart. And while this is technically a mid-range device, it still doesn't excuse the flaws of the operating system. Even when BlackBerry started to lose popularity in 2010 and 2011, phones like the Galaxy S2 and iPhone 4 were out, both fantastic and very feature-rich devices.